Hello everyone, Sef Alchemist here. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. In my previous video, I talked about sexual misconduct and how it can hinder your spiritual growth. And to be quite honest with you, I was surprised with your comments, your reactions. Many of you seem to understand when it comes to sexuality and adultery and sexual misconduct. And that made me really happy that many of you are aware of that. So today, I want to talk about relationships in spirituality, because this is another subject that is completely misunderstood and that humanity have been adopting for thousands of years without understanding it. Most humans adopt this concept for their life just because humanity have been doing it since the beginning. And that's it. But I'm here to bring to you a different approach about relationships and how you can utilize them for your spiritual growth. And what's the meaning of relationships to begin with? So when we talk about spirituality and connecting to the spirit realm, we all know that there is something called the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Yin, yang. The beautiful sun, the daylight, and then the darkness, the nighttime. There's always two opposites. And they're both good, they're both beautiful, not like how many dogmas have conditioned you to believe that always one is bad and the other is good. There's no good or bad. Saying one is good and the other is bad is like saying the divine masculine or feminine is good and then the other one is bad. No, they're both essential, they're both necessary. That's why I'm a big advocate for embracing darkness, because darkness is as beautiful as light. When you go to the East, they understand this very well. They know that there is no good or bad. Why? Why do they understand it? Because of their religions, because Hinduism, Buddhism, they understand that there isn't good or bad. There's only two sides, two extremes. Even the Hermetic principles, which is Hermeticism in essence, states the principle of polarity, two extremes, two sides of the same thing. Hot and cold, they're the same thing. But when they vibrate at different degrees, they become different. Love and hate, the emotion of love and hate are the same. They're just vibrating at different degrees. So, divine masculine is as beautiful as the divine feminine. And you need to have them balanced together in harmony within yourself, because each one of us have the divine masculine and the divine feminine. But then the manifestation of the physical body is as a male or a female. Males embody more of the divine masculine, females embody more of the divine feminine. There are exceptions of males embodying more divine feminine and of females embodying more divine masculine. I'm not denying the exceptions, but generally speaking, males are more masculine, females are more feminine, generally speaking. But why this separation? Why? Why were we created like this? We were not created like this. We fell from divinity. Because at the higher heavens, there is no masculine or feminine. Gender and sexuality doesn't exist. It's just one thing. But a lot of beings and gods, some of you call them gods, have fell from that divinity. And when you fall from the divinity, you have to split into either male or female. And when you split into that, when you come to earth, that manifests into either a man or a woman. So now you're more fragmented. Before you were one, and now you're fragmented. Hence the concept of twin flame and soulmate. That's why a twin flame or a soulmate, but it's more so the twin flame concept, when two souls meet that are originally the same, a man and a woman, divine masculine, divine feminine, but originally they were one thing. They were one being, but they kept being fragmented, and over many reincarnations, they got lost. They have been separated for many reincarnations, and right now, you find people craving to reunite with that other half of them. But when you meet your twin flame, you're like identical. You're like the same thing, because you were the same thing originally. But don't be too happy about that, because imagine having to deal with another version of you. Maybe some people find it beautiful, but some people find it like hell, because why would you want to be with you? And that's why most twin flames, they don't work out their relationships. They don't. Because it's very difficult to deal with yourself in another form, in another body. So here I just gave a little background about why we exist as male and female, why we're separated like this, why there's two genders in this physical reality. So now that you understand that, here's the million-dollar question. Are we supposed to be together and live with the one person for us? When humans were created, when these beings who also have genders, they also have males and females, when they fall from the divinity and split into two genders, and they have been living for millions of years, and they got bored, and one day they're like, we want to create these robots version of us. They created us. We're the robots version of them. And they called us humans, and we've been living on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. But we are in their image. We're created in their image. Thus, they created us like them, as males and females. So we're just a reflection of them. But we're like, you know how humans are trying nowadays to replicate themselves through creating robots? That's what we are to these other beings. We are biological advanced robots made in their image, not as smart, not as advanced, not as spiritual, but a lower version of them. They created us, what for? For fun, I'm going to ask you the same. Why are we creating robots right now? Why are humans trying to create robots? If you find the answer for that, that's the same answer why they created us. For slavery, for doing things for them, working for them. What was Adam and Eve doing in the garden? They were tending to the gods. Tending. Go research what that is. Them being cast away from the heaven or from the garden, it's like you having a robot that you don't like anymore, and then you throw them in the junkyard. It's the same. You tell them, get out of my house. I don't want you anymore. It's the same concept. Now that you have a background about why the humans are born as men and women, why this concept of marriage, of being married to someone and having to have a family with them and having to have kids with them? Why is that? This is all a reflection of the gods again. Because when the first humans were cast to earth, that's what they were taught from their gods. Some of you call them angels, some of you call them prophets. And this, I don't need to go into those details because you know that. Some of these beings were sent to humans to teach them how to live. And one way is that you need to live in couples and make babies. This is all a reflection of how the gods were living, because the gods are living like that too. The lower gods, they reproduce. The higher gods, they don't have to reproduce. But let me just add the detail here that this is the doing of the lower gods, not the higher gods. That's why there are clashes between the gods themselves. The lower gods are the ones who committed atrocities and decided to give birth to humans. It's not the higher gods. So everything we're doing is mimicking the life of these lower gods that created us. And that many, many still worship nowadays. You know that even some of these lower gods or beings, because I prefer to call them beings because they're just other beings, you know that they died and they don't even exist anymore, and many humans still worship them. You know, because they also die. They live longer, they live for thousands of years. Some of them live for hundreds of thousands of years, but they die. There's the Sumerian king list that describes kings that have lived for tens of thousands of years, just in ancient Sumeria. They were Anunnaki. So each king have lived for tens of thousands of years, and then they died. They died. They're not immortal, they're not eternal. Thus, this concept of a relationship, marriage, being together, having a family, it's all some nonsense that some being told your ancestors to do, and you're still doing it now. But let's put that aside. That's on one hand. On the other hand, why do you think you need another person to live with? Society have reached a point that it has become just ridiculous. That people are projecting their dreams, their life goals, and their expectations on their partners. And they call that love. Couples telling to each other, it could be from each side, I want you to make me happy. Why aren't you making me happy? Why aren't you doing what I want? Just think about it. Just think about how nonsensical this is. You're expecting someone else to make you happy. You're expecting someone else to fulfill your dreams. And a lot of couples fall for this trap, and you find that one side, they're actually kind and they believe in this and they try to do their best to please the other person, to make them happy, because the other person is always like, why aren't you making me happy? Why aren't you making me happy? So that man or woman do their best to make the other person happy, and that person, of course, they're never happy because happiness comes from within. And let's call it contentment, not happiness. Just that state of peace. So everyone is walking around having a void inside. You know why people have a void inside? Because they don't want to embrace it. They don't want to go in it. If you have a void, you have to go in it and stay there and meditate there. And that's how you understand that everything is a void. That void is just within you, is just part of the bigger void that makes up everything, which is darkness. So these people who have these voids, they don't understand them, and they try to fill those voids that you can never fill because existence is a void. But you were told that a void needs to be filled. So you find people chasing other people thinking that they can fill their voids. It's the biggest madness I have ever witnessed in any reincarnation. And some people fall for that and they do their best, and the other person is never happy, and they keep blaming them and projecting their negativity on the other person. You're not doing this for me. You're not making me happy. I told you to do this for me. You never do it for me. And we wonder why everyone is divorcing and why everyone is cheating around the world. People wonder why. And a lot of the times people, especially who are aware of the concept of twin flame and soulmate, it gets even worse. With soulmates, people understand that a soulmate can be just any person you have met in your past life. It could be your family member, your best friend. It's not someone that you can romantically be involved with. For example, your best friend can be your soulmate. Your mother can be your soulmate. But when it comes to a twin flame, it gets worse. A lot of people think that they have met their twin flames, even though they're not, because it's rare when one can meet their twin flames, by the way. There's 8 billion people on the planet. It's rare. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's very rare. But you know, because of the delusion of humanity, many people think that they have met their twin flames. Many people believe that they're gifted and they're actually not. Many people think that they're very intelligent, but they're actually not. So similarly, many people think that they have met their twin flames, but they're not. And most of the time, you find some delusional person who becomes infatuated with another person, and they start projecting their fantasies on a person they don't know. And they even start calling them, that's my twin flame. They don't know this person. And they build this fantasy in their head about this person. And they start dreaming about them. And then 1 month later, they start calling them twin flames. That is a lot for the other person. So because if you tell the other person that you're in love with them, even though it's just an infatuation, and you start telling them that they're your twin flame and this and that, what do you want the other person to do with that? Put yourself in their shoes. Imagine if someone comes and throw that up on you, and they tell you, oh my God, you're my soulmate, you're my twin flame, and I think you're the one for me, and we've had past lives together and this and that. So becoming infatuated with someone without knowing them is the biggest mistake that leads you to delusion. And here's the dangerous part. Some people fall for that because it's fantastical. Fantastical things don't exist much nowadays. So when a random person hears that, they start believing maybe this is true. This person is telling me that I'm their twin flame and that we are divine beings and that we're supposed to be together. Maybe that woman or that man will fall for that, and they will fall for your story, for your infatuation, and they will end up with you. And the moment you start getting to know each other and maybe start living together, it is World War III. It's catastrophical. And you can't stand each other because now you actually know each other very well. And you figure out that you're completely two different species. You have nothing in common, nothing at all. It ends up in cheating, in breakups, and more worse than this, it ends up in you hating each other. Why? Because you were infatuated with an idea, and you built up a whole world about it in your mind. And you made the other person fall for it. Look how much karma you have built for yourself. Look how much karma. So here's my question to you. All of that energy you spent to build this negative situation, why didn't you spend it on yourself? Why didn't you take that infatuation, because it requires energy to build that world and think about things all the time? Why didn't you take that energy and focus on yourself, focus on your own growth? Focus on finding out who you truly are. Because your real twin flame, or the person that's actually best for you, maybe it's not a twin flame, but the one person for you, will only show up when you are ready. When you're not ready, they're not going to show up. If you still find yourself saying, well, they're not making me happy, well, they don't satisfy me, well, they're not being in the way I want them to be. If you find yourself saying that as you're watching this video, you haven't met your twin flame and you have not worked on yourself yet. The right person for you, either twin flame or not, or soulmate, just the right person for you will show up when you are ready. When you reach a point that you don't need someone to make you happy, where you don't expect anything from someone. When you are complete all by yourself. When you don't need anyone or anything, that's when the right person shows up for you. And when you're not chasing, when you're not looking for someone. If you find yourself looking for someone, you're not going to meet the one at all. If some of you right now are looking for a partner, I'm telling you right now, this is a little reading for you. That's not the one for you. You're going to find someone, you're going to end up with someone, but it's not the one for you. Because the right person for you only shows up when you are not looking. When you are not looking, that's when they show up. That's how it works. Meeting the one for you doesn't mean that you need to live together. Who came up with this? Again, because our ancestors did it, we have to do it. And because our ancestors were told by some lower gods that that's what they need to do, we have to do it? Who said that we need to live together? Why? When you're fully ready, both of you will know, by the way, that person, the one for you, you will vibrate on the same frequency and you will connect on beautiful things. You will talk about amazing subjects. And you will not have a sexual attraction at first. What? But how is that? I just said in the previous video, it's not about sexuality. Who said it's about sex? The closest relationship that will end up in destruction is the relationship that starts with sex. I hope that made sense to you. A relationship that starts with sex is the relationship that ends up in destruction the fastest. Because sex will disappear. So how long are you going to enjoy that sex with the other person for? How long? Just tell me. If you're not in your third or fourth decade of living, you will not understand what I'm talking about. If you're in your 20s, you're probably going to disagree with me. But if you're with a person for a long time, how long is the sex going to be there? 2 years? 3 years? Okay, let me be very generous. Let's give it 5 years. And then sex is going to go away. The sex will disappear. I'm talking about sexual attraction, because some of you might not understand what I'm saying. That sexual attraction with the person that you think you love is gonna disappear. And then, what? So what, break up? That's how it's supposed to be? So you just are with someone for sex? Is that how it is? And that's why I keep saying, you will only meet the right person when you are ready. When you're not even looking for sex. That's what I'm trying to say. You're not looking for someone to make you happy. You're not looking for someone to satisfy you emotionally. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're not looking for someone to satisfy you sexually. That's when the right person will show up. When that right person will show up to you, the first attraction is going to be through the mind. It's going to be mind attraction, not sexual attraction. And you're going to talk about not stupid details. You're going to talk about beautiful, deep subjects. And you will fascinate each other. And you will form this bubble, this dimension around you that only the two of you exist, to the point that what's around you blurs, it becomes blurry. When you go outside and you talk and you're in each other's dimension, what's around you is blurred. And you enrich each other, you help each other grow unintentionally without intending it. Because when you're with the one, there's no motives. You're not hoping to make them better. They're not hoping to make you better. You make each other better organically, naturally. You make each other happier organically. You don't say, I'm gonna make her happy. I'm gonna make him happy. No, you don't even think about that. They don't expect anything from you and you don't expect anything from them. And all of this is happening while you probably don't live with each other, because you understand that each one need their sacred space. Each one need to focus on themselves. So what is this madness about living with each other? Because society will validate me. Society will validate that I have a partner. Who cares? Or because my family will respect me, my friends will respect me. So you live for your family, you live for your friends, you live for your environment, you don't live for yourself. So you're always just satisfying and pleasing other people around you. Think about it. That's awareness. You know, the awareness I'm trying to share in this channel is this stuff. It's more of this than the magic, than magical rituals. That stuff is a bonus. Magic and things that are supernatural and paranormal, that's a bonus. First of all, you need to become aware of these things that I'm sharing with you. And unfortunately, that's why most relationships around the world end up in havoc, because they're based on either sex or stupidity or delusion, thinking that you have met the one for you, or expectations, because you're always expecting the other person to make you happy, which brings me to the concept of living with each other. Why the need of living with each other? Why is that? And this is more for those of you who are willing to understand this. I'm not talking to normal people. This channel, as a little reminder, is not for normal people at all. So because anything I say on this channel for normal people will sound like crazy. So this is just for those of you who are willing to become aware of these things. But how do you know if you're ready to meet the right person? This is how it goes. First of all, you're going to be by yourself. You're going to be single. You're not going to be engaged in any other relationship, because you can't play games and you can't cheat. I talked about that in my previous video. And you're going to be spending all of the time working on yourself, on your inner being, to find out who you are, to embrace who you are, embrace your darkness. Number 3, you're not looking for anyone. You're not looking for a partner. You're not looking for a sexual relationship. You're not looking for someone else to make you happy or to complete you. You're not looking for anybody. And you're living your life in peace. You're working on yourself. And your goal is to go through the alchemical transmutation and being aligned at all times. And that's when randomly, out of nowhere, when you expect it least, the right person will show up to you. It could be anywhere, in a coffee shop, in a restaurant, when you're having a walk in the park, could be anywhere. And the universe will make sure that you are gonna both meet. And it's gonna be effortless. And you don't have to try hard, and they don't have to try hard to get you, because they're gonna be at your level. Everything I mentioned applies to them. It's the same. They're not looking for anyone. They're not chasing to find a partner or a person to make them happy. So you're going to be on the same frequency. Everything is going to be effortless. And when you start talking, both of you are going to talk like friends, like you're not looking for someone to be with. You're not looking to have sex with them. And you're going to bond over deep, beautiful subjects, which elevates each of you. You're going to learn from each other. And that's how the relationship forms organically. And it's probably not going to end up in you living with each other, because the masters, they know that being with one all the time is the closest way to hate them the most. If you're with someone all the time, that's how you're going to end up not liking them. You have to take your space. You have to have your private space. I mean, why can't people live separately? You're with the other person, you love them, you respect them. They have their own apartment, you have your own apartment. What's the point? Why live with each other? Just think about it logically speaking. What's the point of living with each other? It just creates problems, drama, arguments, fights all the time. You never miss each other anymore because you're seeing each other all the time. But this is probably not going to make sense to a lot of you. But the few crazy ones, crazy in a good way, I mean it in a good way, they will get what I'm saying. And you meet that one person for you that you love and admire and respect. You meet them whenever you both have a free time. Now you miss them, you respect them more, you want to talk to them, and when you're done, you go your separate ways to your separate lives. When you feel sexually attracted to each other, that has its own time, its own place as well. But you're not lusting each other. This is another important point. You're not thinking about them as a pornography movie. You're not thinking about them in terms of lust. Now it becomes pure sexual love-making. And each one of you have their own lives. You can visit each other, you can have fun, but you still have your own private space. Can you imagine if most couples lived like this? The amount of love and respect people will have for each other. Because sure, let's not even talk about twin flames and soulmates. I'm just talking about normal people. If normal people lived like this. But many of you are going to say, what about kids? Well, who said kids cannot be with their dad sometimes and with their mom sometimes? Who said that their kids have to always be with their parents together? Again, another social construct that have been placed for millennia by ancestors and beings, and we're just following it without thinking why we are following it. When I was young and I was living in Japan, I heard this back then, decades ago, and I found this very bizarre. So for example, in the house or in the apartment, there's one room that's for the father and one room that's for the mother. They don't have shared rooms. And I found the concept bizarre and so weird, and I asked many of my Japanese friends, and it turned out that most of their parents had separate rooms, and I never understood the reason why. But now I do. But I know that for Japan, it's a separate case scenario. It has nothing to do with spirituality, because they're very busy and they don't have time to socialize and to talk, and that's why they have their separate rooms. But I heard just recently that in Japan, there's this new kind of marriage where a couple get married together, but they still live in two separate places, even though they get married. And they just meet maybe twice a week, whenever they're free. And then they still have their separate lives with respect and love. Why can't we live like this? It's gonna decrease the amount of fights, the amount of arguments, the amount of madness that goes in households. Madness. And it's gonna entice you to focus more on yourself, because now you have more time for yourself. If your kids are with you, you can focus on your kids and yourself without having to focus on the other person. Maybe when the kids are in the baby stage, the first few years, maybe the parents have to help each other on a daily basis. But as the kids grow up, why the need to live all together? When you can still meet, I'm not saying don't meet, you can still meet all together whenever you want, but you still have your own private space where you can focus on each other and harness that peace that you need, because we're humans. Humans need time for themselves. If they don't, that's when depression and misery accumulates, and by the time someone retires, they find that their whole lives were gone. They never focused on themselves. They gave all their time to someone that never appreciated them, or to their kids, and all of a sudden they're retired, they're old, they're by themselves, and they're confused, and they don't know what to do. So I know that very few humans can do what I just said, because this requires a high level of awareness and love and respect, so that you don't cheat on the person you're with, even though you're living separately. So you're always respecting what the other person's life, their time, their being. This is a higher level of existence for humanity. Maybe it will manifest a couple 100 years from now, or maybe never. But for the few of you who are becoming aware of what I'm talking about, I just want to tell you that before you can meet the real one for you, you have to be complete by yourself. Otherwise, the one for you, which you can have a magical life with, someone you can have a magical life with, that one for you is never going to show up if you're not ready and if you're expecting always something from the other person, and if you're always lusting for the other person, and if you're always infatuated and building fantasy worlds in your head about the other person, and if you're always chasing after someone, you're never going to meet the one for you, either twin flame or not. You're not. So focus on yourself. That's why I always say focus on yourself first. Be full, complete with who you are. And then that person that catapults you to the next level will show up for you out of nowhere, and you will be shocked when that happens, and it's gonna be magical. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this helps, because this relationship dilemma is a huge problem that humanity have been struggling with forever, and they're still struggling with it, and it seems like no one can find a solution to this. And the reason why is because no one is focusing on themselves. Everyone wants to project and expect whatever they're lacking on the other person. The moment you find yourself saying, my partner is not making me happy, the moment you find yourself saying something like this within these lines, know that there's a lot of work that you need to do on yourself. I just hope you understand. Okay? Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Sorosh milech. Yizeresh koloroch.